You think disorder is just a mess, a mistake, a lack of effort, something you could clean if you just tried hard enough. Milk spills across the table. You picture rewinding it, white liquid gathering itself, climbing back into the glass. Nothing in your mind resists this, because in your mind, motion has no preference. Forward looks the same as backward. Particles don't care. Nature doesn't care. You believe the only difference is coordination, enough control, enough precision. So you assume the universe fails to reverse only because it's complicated. But complicated is not forbidden. Difficult is not impossible. And yet, spilled milk never unspills. Not once, not anywhere, not ever. This is not about technology, not about engineering, not about patience. Something deeper refuses, not breaks, refuses. And the refusal is absolute. You think you watch things happen. The glass tips, milk falls, it spreads across the table. You call that a process. But what you actually see is a narrative your brain assembles after the fact. Your eyes do not detect motion, they detect light. Tiny changes in brightness striking a flat surface at the back of your skull. There is no pouring in that signal, no before and after. Only patterns replaced by slightly different patterns. Your brain stitches those patterns into a story. Object here, object later, path connecting them. You feel like you observed motion directly. You didn't. You inferred it. Now imagine the same sequence played backward, milk crawling inward, gathering into a rising column, re-entering the glass. You instantly recognize it as impossible, but notice something strange. Your eyes would still only receive patterns of light, frame by frame, perfectly consistent with physical movement. The retina would not protest. Photons would not complain. Every individual image would look ordinary. The impossibility appears only when your brain constructs a story connecting them. Forward frames form a cause. Backward frames form a violation. The difference is not in the images. The difference is in the interpretation. You believe you witnessed a law of nature being broken. What you actually witnessed was a narrative becoming unacceptable. This matters because physics does not operate on stories. Physics only accepts complete descriptions of a moment, positions and velocities, without caring how you label them. The universe does not know what a spill is. It does not know what a glass is. It certainly does not know what undoing means. Those are human categories. When you say, the milk went back in, you imagine reversing a sequence of events. But physics never handles sequences. It handles states, a full arrangement of every particle at one instant, nothing more. From that perspective, there is no special status for a frame taken from a movie played forward or backward. Both are just arrangements. So the discomfort you feel, the certainty that one direction is real and the other is forbidden, did not come from observing nature. It came from the way your mind compresses billions of particles into a single story called what happened. And that compression hides something, because if reality is only states, not stories, then reversing what happened may not even be a meaningful request. You imagine physics pushing the world forward, a hidden current, a rule that insists tomorrow must follow today. But the equations never say this. Take a single particle drifting through empty space, give it a position, give it a velocity. Physics tells you where it will be later. Now do something strange. Keep the position exactly the same. Flip the velocity. Every forward prediction becomes a backward prediction. Not approximately, exactly. The laws do not object. They do not contain a preference for after. They only connect one complete state to another complete state. Forward and backward are equally valid solutions. This is not special to simple motion. Two billiard balls collide. They scatter apart. Film it. Now reverse the recording. Two balls approach along precise paths, collide, and depart into the original directions. You call one normal, the other impossible. The equations call them identical. No hidden friction appears in the math. No microscopic rule vetoes the reversed collision. At the level of atoms, every interaction works like this. Molecules bounce, electrons deflect, photons scatter. If you reverse every velocity in the universe at one instant, the future becomes the past perfectly. Nothing breaks. No law complains, so the world at its smallest scale does not know which way time points. And yet your experience is dominated by direction. Eggs break, never unbreak. Smoke spreads, never gathers. Milk spills, never climbs. Somewhere between atoms and tables, a preference appears that does not exist in the rules governing the atoms. This is the tension. The microscopic description says both directions are allowed. The macroscopic world allows only one, not rarely one, not practically one, exclusively one. So the arrow of time is not written into motion itself, which means whatever forbids the milk from returning is not a force, not friction, not a hidden mechanism acting on particles. It must emerge only when we stop tracking individual particles and begin describing collections. The moment we summarize reality, something irreversible enters. And that something is not motion, it is counting. You think the milk spread because it moved outward, because it flowed, because gravity pulled it, because liquids seek lower places. All true and completely irrelevant. The real change was not motion, it was number. Picture the milk still inside the glass, molecules packed into a small volume, each moving randomly, colliding constantly, but constrained. There are only so many microscopic arrangements where every molecule fits inside the glass at once, still enormous, but limited. Now the glass tips. The milk spreads across the table. Nothing dramatic happened to any single molecule. No instruction given, no rule rewritten. They simply kept moving, but suddenly the number of possible arrangements exploded. Now each molecule could be here, or here, or here, across the table surface, in tiny ripples, thin films, edges, droplets. The count did not increase a little. It increased beyond imagination. The spilled state is not special because it is messy. It is special because it can exist in vastly more microscopic ways than the contained state ever could. And physics does not track which arrangement you meant. It only evolves whatever arrangement exists. So when you say the milk is on the table, you are describing trillions upon trillions of distinct microscopic realities using one sentence. But when you say the milk is back in the glass, you are describing an extraordinarily tiny subset of realities. You are asking the universe to land on one precise microscopic configuration among almost none. Forward evolution moves from rare arrangements to common ones, not because it tries to, because almost every possible motion leads there. Reversal would require the opposite, every molecule choosing exactly coordinated paths simultaneously without exception, not unlikely coordination, perfect coordination. One molecule slightly wrong, still a spill. Two molecules wrong, still a spill. A billion wrong, still a spill. Almost every microscopic possibility corresponds to the milk being spread out. Almost none correspond to it being neatly contained. So when time moves forward, nothing pushes the milk outward. The universe is simply wandering among possible arrangements, and it is surrounded overwhelmingly by spilled ones. The catastrophe is not chaos. The catastrophe is arithmetic. At this point, you might retreat to probability. You accept the numbers are extreme, but still numbers. So you imagine a miracle. Given enough time, the molecules could randomly coordinate. A fluctuation, an absurd coincidence, milk climbing back into the glass. Unbelievably unlikely, but not forbidden. That sounds reasonable. It is also wrong, because you quietly assumed something impossible, that the same milk could be specified. To reverse the spill, the universe must reach not just a similar arrangement, but the exact microscopic one that previously existed. Every molecule, every position, every velocity, not approximately, exactly. If even one molecule enters the glass at the wrong speed, collisions diverge. Nanoseconds later, the state becomes entirely different. You would still see liquid in the glass, but it would not be the past returning. It would be a new future that merely resembles it. Reversal demands identity, not resemblance. So you must define a target, the precise arrangement corresponding to before the spill. Here the idea collapses, because that arrangement was never a single state. You never knew it. No observer ever specified the position and velocity of every particle in the milk, the air, the table, and the surrounding room. Your memory stored a story, a full glass sitting upright. Physics requires a list longer than the number of atoms in your body. Without that list, there is no defined past state to return to. And without a defined state, probability cannot even be calculated. You cannot ask, How likely is the reversal? Because the reversal is not a single target. It is an unimaginably tiny region inside an unimaginably vast space, a region you never identified. So the universe cannot aim for it. Randomness cannot stumble onto it. Time cannot approach it, not because it is rare, because the concept back to before exists only in your compressed description. Macroscopic language groups countless microscopic states into one label. Microscopic physics does not. From the microscopic perspective, the glass before spill was not a point in reality. It was a fog of possibilities you chose to treat as one event. And reversing into a fog is not a physical task. It is a semantic one. The universe cannot return to a description. It can only move to another exact state. So the failure of entropy to reverse is deeper than improbability. There is no uniquely defined destination called the past configuration, only a vast collection you named after the fact. And without a precise destination, reversal stops being unlikely. It stops being a coherent request. You trust the past because you remember it. The upright glass feels certain. You saw it. You can replay it in your mind. Memory seems like a window pointing backward, but memory is not a recording. It is a physical trace. Neurons changed, molecules rearranged, heat released. Your brain did not store the past abstractly. It physically moved into a new configuration, correlated with what happened. A mark in a notebook works the same way. So does a photograph. So does a dent in the table. A record is always a transformation of matter. Now notice the pattern. Every record requires spreading information into many microscopic details. Ink disperses into paper fibers. Charge patterns lock into silicon. Neural connections strengthen across billions of atoms. Recording always multiplies the number of possible arrangements compatible with the present. In other words, making a memory increases entropy. This creates a strange asymmetry. You possess records of the upright glass because the universe moved into states that contain traces of it. But a future event cannot leave traces in the present without those traces already existing now. For you to remember tomorrow's spill today, your brain would need to already contain the molecular consequences of an event that has not yet occurred. That is not merely unlikely. It contradicts what a record physically is, a correlation produced by interaction. The direction you call past is simply the direction where correlations exist. The direction you call future is where they do not yet exist. So the arrow of time appears wherever information accumulates. Not where motion happens, not where forces act, where records form. The spilled milk cannot unspill while you remember it spilled, because undoing the spill would also need to undo every correlated record, the air disturbances, the table stains, the neural changes in your brain. Every memory would have to unform simultaneously, not erased, unformed, and if all records vanished, the reversal would be indistinguishable from never having happened, which means you could never witness entropy decreasing. Observation itself depends on its increase. The past feels fixed, not because events are preserved, but because their consequences multiplied beyond removal. You don't remember the past because it is gone. You remember it because the universe cannot compress the information back. You might now expect a law, some deep principle forcing entropy upward. A cosmic rule written into the equations. There isn't one. The microscopic laws, even now, still allow reversal. So why does every record point the same way? Why did information begin accumulating at all? Because the universe started in a condition where almost no records could exist, an extremely special arrangement. Not violent, not chaotic, simple. At the beginning, matter and radiation were distributed with extraordinary uniformity. Very few structures. Very few correlations, very few ways to describe what had already happened. In such a state, nearly every possible change creates new distinctions. Clumps form, stars ignite, atoms bind, surfaces appear where marks can be made. From that moment onward, interactions naturally generate traces, not because time pushes forward, but because the starting point contained almost none. Imagine opening a brand new notebook. Every scribble increases what can be said about its history, but once filled, random motion will not restore blank pages, not forbidden, just undefined. There is no single original blank once ink patterns exist. The early universe was the blank page. Every moment since has been writing. Entropy increases because the initial condition allowed writing in only one temporal direction, away from uniformity. Reversal would require returning to that special simplicity, erasing every structure simultaneously across the cosmos, not breaking stars, not dissolving atoms, removing all records everywhere at once. The laws permit it mathematically. But the universe no longer occupies a state where earlier simplicity is a reachable description. The beginning was not earlier in time because clocks ran differently. It was earlier because it contained fewer distinguishable arrangements than any moment after. Time's direction is inherited from that boundary, not enforced during evolution. You have been imagining entropy as something that moves, as if disorder flows forward, as if time carries it, but nothing flows. At every instant, the universe is simply in one exact microscopic state. The difference between before and after is not motion. It is how many alternative states resemble the present one. When the milk is contained, there are relatively few microscopic realities compatible with that description. When the milk is spilled, there are incomprehensibly many. So which direction is the future? The direction in which the number of compatible realities grows. That is all. The spilled milk does not fail to return because it is prohibited. It fails because return refers to a tiny island in a vast ocean of possibilities, an island that only exists in your compressed description of the past. Entropy is not resisting you. It is defining the landscape. The future is not ahead of you in time. It is the direction in which the counting expands. And once you see that, reversal stops being a forbidden miracle. It becomes a category error. The milk on the table is not a mistake that persists. It is what the universe looks like when possibilities outnumber precision. And that imbalance is not temporary. It is the structure of reality itself.